Hello everyone. The images used in our slide deck are for educational purposes only. We respect the intellectual property rights of the original creators and the owner of these images. If you are the owner of any of the images used in this deck and have any concerns or issues, please contact us at sathi@iitk.ac.in and we shall remove the images. Hello my dear students, I hope you all are well and doing good. Your preparations are going well, and I suppose till this point of time, you have been very well versed with the syllogism portion of the logical reasoning part of all the competitive examinations that are going to be there in future. So, as you all know that we have started with this lecture series over syllogism, where we have discussed uh, a lot about how the syllogism works, what exactly is the use of syllogism, what exactly is the meaning of syllogism. And so far, we have successfully solved more than 50 questions for your practice in this particular lecture series. This perhaps will be the last lecture series over the topic of syllogism, where which we are going to just have a quick revision of all those things that we have studied. And not only that, we will ensure that if there was anything that was missed from our side, we should be able to grasp that important concept also. इस पर्टिकुलर लेक्चर सीरीज में हम लोगों ने सिलोगिज्म के बारे में जितनी भी चर्चा करी, उनमें हम लोगों ने बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट कॉन्सेप्ट्स, टाइप्स, टेक्निक्स के बारे में पढ़ा, समझा, और साथ ही साथ में हमने बहुत सारे प्रश्न भी सॉल्व करे सिलोगिज्म के. इस पर्टिकुलर वीडियो में हम लोग उस पर्टिकुलर टॉपिक्स को जो हम लोगों ने ऑलरेडी कवर कर रखे हैं, उसका क्विक रिवीजन कर रहे हैं, ताकि कोई भी जो भी इंपॉर्टेंट टॉपिक्स थे, वो इंपॉर्टेंट कॉन्सेप्ट्स थे, वो हम लोग एक बार फिर से रिवाइज कर सके. एंड और कोई भी अगर टॉपिक ऐसा है जो किसी बच्चे को नहीं समझ में आया, इफ दे आर नॉट एबल टू ग्रास्प इट, दे आर नॉट एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड इट, they can understand that what exactly was meant from that particular information that was provided. So as you can see over my screen, my dear students, this particular video is talking about syllogism. So we have completed the topic syllogism in our previous lecture series, and in this we'll have a quick revision of all those things that we have studied so far. Okay, so just keep your handbooks where which you have kept all the important notes of syllogism ready and handy, and just go through whatsoever we are discussing, so that you can also with us revise whatsoever we have already completed, and it will give you an extra confidence that at least one topic of the competitive examination which I am going to give in future is actually ready, and I don't have to take any concern. Yes, obviously, it is advisable that you are going to practice again and again all the questions which is related to syllogism. But at least your concept will be there in your brain, and you can apply those concepts whenever you will be attempting any question which is related to syllogism. So without wasting any time, my dear students, let's have a quick revision in this particular video, and we will be covering all the important concepts that we have discussed, all the types that we have discussed in our past lecture series, and we will just try to have a quick recall of everything that we have studied so far. So let's start, my dear students. So as you all know, this is syllogism topic which we are going to discuss. We are going to have a quick revision of all those things that we have studied. We have studied about the meaning. A syllogism is a form of reasoning. Okay, so what is syllogism? It is a form of a reasoning. Certain times, although this will not be asked in your competitive examination that what exactly is syllogism, but you should know, so that at least you can interpret that what exactly is syllogism whenever somebody asks you the same. Syllogism is nothing but a form of reasoning. So it is a form of reasoning in logic where a conclusion is drawn from two given or assumed propositions. Okay, so a syllogism is a what? Is a form of reasoning in logic where a conclusion is drawn from two or assumed propositions. Each of these premises share a common term with the conclusion. So each of these propositions. So do you remember when we were solving questions in our past videos? or for your reference, I can show you one so that you can be better acquainted. So this is the question that we have already solved. So the statement that is right now in front of you, which is talking about the statement, it is nothing but the premises that we were referring to when we were talking about the propositions. So these are the propositions that we are referring to. And from this proposition, the logical conclusion that can be taken into consideration is something what is known as syllogism. So syllogism is the logical conclusion from the given propositions or the statements in order to figure out whether the conclusions that has been provided has logical inference of these statements or not. So my dear students, have you understood? This is what is syllogism. So a syllogism is a form of reasoning in logic where a conclusion is drawn from two given or assumed propositions. Each of these premises share a common term with the conclusion, and conclusion logically follows from the premises. So it is very important to understand that the conclusion should logically follow from the premises. If it is not following from the premises, that means that particular conclusion that has been provided cannot be taken into consideration. So it becomes very important that the statement as well as the conclusion should be logically related. So that is what is the main concern or the main aspect of what we call as syllogism, where which the propositions and the conclusions are logically related to each other. A perfect example that is right now in front of your screen, if you can see, a classic example of this syllogism is all men are mortal. Okay, so all men are mortal means ये सारे मनुष्य जीवकार हैं, and Socrates is a man. So Socrates एक मनुष्य है. So therefore, the conclusion that follows from these two statements that has been provided is that Socrates is also mortal. So this is a sort of what we call as syllogism. If you can see, there are two premises or the two statements that has been provided. One is termed as major premises and the second one is termed as the minor premises. And now, whenever we are going to have logical inference of the conclusion from these two premises, we have to first ascertain that which is the major premises and which is the minor premises. How we are going to do it? We are going to understand that this is the major premises by looking at the words that has been provided. In this particular inference, in this particular example, if we can see, the word that starts in the major premises says as all men. So when you say the word all, it represents that we are talking about a universal concept. And when we're talking about the universal concept, it will be considered as a major premise. And the second is the minor premise, where which we are talking about a particular thing or event that has happened. So here, all men are mortal is the major premise. And minor premise is Socrates is a man. And from these two premise or these two propositions, what we can infer, what we can conclude, that the conclusion that can be drawn from these two premises are that Socrates is mortal. So if you can understand, if you can correlate these two premises and the conclusion itself, you will be able to understand that all these three are complementing each other. All these three are actually showcasing that yes, all men are mortal. If Socrates is a man, then it can be inferred, it can be logically followed that Socrates is also mortal. I suppose you have understood this particular concept. So my dear students, now let's try to understand this particular example, which we have already understood that there is a general rule that all men are mortal. Then there is a major specific instance. Okay, that's we have already studied. Like Socrates is a man. And the conclusion that is following from these two premises are that Socrates is mortal. I can give you another example for a better understanding. If you can say that all men are mature, okay, or all men wear black shirt, okay. So this can be one example, a general rule that all men wear black shirt. Now, Rajiv is a man. If Rajiv is a man, and if we say that all men wear black shirt, then what can we infer from that statement? What do we understand from that statement? We understand that if all men wear black shirt, and at the same time, Rajiv is also a man, then we can conclude that Rajiv will also wear black shirt. So all these inferences, all these propositions and the conclusions, when they logically follow each other, then it is known as syllogism. And that is what is the main aspect of asking these type of questions in your competitive examination, is to figure out that whether you can logically infer from the statements that has been provided that whether the conclusion will or will not follow. There will be four options that will be provided to you, and in those four options there will be options like only conclusion 1 follows, only conclusion 2 follows, conclusion 1 and 2 both follows, either conclusion 1 or 2 follows, or neither conclusion 1 or 2 follows. So in this manner, you will have options that will be provided, and then you have statement as well as the conclusion. Your work would be to understand through the statement that has been provided that whether or not the conclusion will follow or not. In order to figure out that whether the conclusion and the statements are complementing each other, or whether the statement will logically follow the conclusion or not, we have to adhere to certain regulations or certain rules which are being followed in syllogism. And in order to understand those rules, it becomes very important to understand the different types of syllogism. So the first thing that you need to understand is that syllogism are used in formal logic. Okay, in order to formulate a logic, syllogism are used to test the validity of the arguments and are the foundational component in deductive reasoning. They are the foundational component in the deductive reasoning. They will help in reducing our logical relation between the statement and the conclusion. They help in understanding how certain premises can support a specific conclusion and are often used in philosophy, law, mathematics to establish clear logical argument. So this is what exactly is the meaning of syllogism. Then, in order to understand the different structure and the ruling of the types of syllogism when we talk, because the different types have different rules. So that is why it becomes very important for every student who is going to study about syllogism, who's preparing for any competitive examination, that at least they should know what are the different types of syllogism. So that once they have the idea that, okay, this is this particular type of syllogism, they will know that what exactly are the rules that are applicable over those types of syllogism. And once they are pretty much clear that, okay, this is the rule that is going to be applied, then solving the syllogism becomes very easy. Okay, so that is why types of syllogism becomes a very important topic, and that is what we are going to study. Syllogism are classified based on the form of the statements, premises and conclusions, and the logical relationship they express. Here are the main types of syllogism. So the main types of syllogism and how to differentiate them is a very important portion that you need to understand. The first is categorical syllogism. If you remember that we have already studied that when there is a form in which the statement starts with all, no, or some, whenever the statement starts with all, no, or some, then this type of syllogism is considered as categorical syllogism. That consists of three categorical propositions, two premises, and a conclusion. Each proposition states a relationship between the two categories or classes. Okay, so major premise, a statement about a relationship between the two categories. Minor premise, a statement involving a third category and one of the two of the major premises. Okay, example could be all women are cute. And then you have another statement. Shweta is a woman. And the conclusion that follows is that Shweta is cute. So now what you can understand from these three inferences is that there in the first major premise that we had a relation between two categories. So let's take this as X and Y. Okay. So when we talk about two categories, and then these words that will be involved is all, no, or some. So if we say all X are Y. Okay. Now all X are Y. And then we say that Z and X. Okay. And then we say Z is X. Therefore, what we can conclude is what we can conclude here is that Z, the examples that has been provided here will help you to understand the major premise and the minor premise. All A are B, this is the major premise. All B are C, this is the minor premise. And therefore, all A are C, this is what the conclusion would be. And that is how categorical syllogism assists us in understanding the relation between three prepositions and understanding that what will be the logical conclusion. How will you be able to differentiate and how will you be able to identify that this particular syllogism is talking about categorical syllogism, the relation when it is being shown through the words of all, some, and no will help us define the term syllogism in categorical syllogism. This is the type of syllogism which is talking about categorical syllogism if they have the words all, some, or no. In the same manner, when you talk about conditional syllogism, so conditional syllogism, the words that will be used is if and then. So whenever the statement is if and then has been used, and this type of syllogism is often not being asked in your competitive examination. Majority of the inferences that you will find in your competitive examination will relate either to categorical syllogism or it will relate it to statistical syllogism or it will be related to spheroids. But if you talk about conditional syllogism, there are seldom you will find any question that is related to conditional syllogism. But nevertheless, you should actually remember that how you have to differentiate between the different types of syllogism, and perhaps that is the very important point of discussion. And that is why understanding how to differentiate becomes important when you talk about conditional or hypothetical syllogism. It is using the word if and then in the statements. If you find the word if and then in any of the statement that has been provided in the syllogism, you can directly infer that this is conditional syllogism. And if it says that there are two types of conditional syllogism, one is modus ponens, affirming the antecedent, and then you have modus tollens, which is denying the consequence. It means that if X then P, it is this structure has been mentioned that we need to understand that if you're talking about modus ponens, if P then Q, it means that P is true, therefore Q is true. Okay, and it will obviously be complementing each other. So if P, then obviously it will be Q. And on the contrary, if not P, then not Q. Okay, so both will complement each other. That if P, then obviously Q will happen. If not P, then Q will not happen. Okay, so modus tolling, denying the incident. If P then Q, Q is not true, then P is not true. So you can understand that this is something which is affirming and this is something which is denying. This is denying, this is affirming. Now we can take one example so that you can also get a clear idea of the same. And the example is right now in front of you. If it rains, the ground will be wet. It is raining, therefore the ground is wet. And if it has been mentioned as if it will not rain, the ground will not be wet. It is not raining, therefore the ground is not wet. Yeah, have you understand that this is how you will be able to differentiate between the syllogism, which is hypothetical syllogism, which is talking about if and then relationship, will either affirm or deny the condition stated in the premises. Okay, it will either affirm the conclusion that will be provided. The conclusion that will be provided will either affirm or deny the condition stated in the premises. Okay, so this is very important for you to understand that the conclusion one will say that if it rains, the ground will be wet. Okay, this is conclusion one, or you can say as statement number one. And the second statement says that it is raining. Now it is raining. So conclusion says the ground will be wet. Okay, or the conclusion will say the ground is not wet. Okay, if it rains, the ground will be wet. This is the first statement that has been provided. And the second statement, which says, it says that the ground it is not raining. The inference of the same would be that the ground is not wet. So this is the inference that you need to take whenever you are talking about logical syllogism and you are talking about conditional or hypothetical syllogism in relation to if and then system. If and then becomes a very important point of discussion whenever we are talking about hypothetical syllogism. Moving forward, let's talk about disjunctive syllogism. So disjunctive syllogism talks about either or. So it means that if there will be P, then it will not be Q. Okay, so this structure, if this will happen, then this will not happen. So in the previous syllogism, previous type of syllogism, we were talking about complementing pair, where if P, then Q. Opposite of it is disjunctive syllogism, where which if P, then not Q. Okay, then not Q. So either P or Q. Either P or Q is the structure, not P, therefore Q. Examples, either the battery is dead or the flashlight is broken. So either the battery is dead or the flashlight is broken. Therefore, the battery is not dead. The battery is not dead. Therefore, the flashlight is broken. What we can infer from this statement is that if P is there, then Q will not be there. And if it is Q is there, then P will not be there. This type of disjunctive syllogism, this is what is called as disjunctive syllogism. Okay. Looking for the statement as either or. The conclusion will affirm one option by negating the other. Okay. So this is what is disjunctive syllogism. Moving forward, when we talk about SATHEE-Law syllogism, this is another type of syllogism in which one premises is not explicitly stated, but is implied or understood. Okay. Sometimes you will see only one statement and then there will be direct conclusion that will be mentioned in order to confuse the student, in order to create confusion in the mind of the reader that this question might not be true. But that is not the correct approach. The point of concern for all the students should be that it can be SATHEE-Law syllogism also, where which only one particular syllogism is, one particular statement has been provided, and based on that you will have to assume the another statement. Okay, the example for that will be, he must be a doctor because he went to medical school. Now this particular conclusion has been provided. Now the another premises that we will assume is that all who go to medical school becomes doctor. This is the unstated premise that we have assumed by ourselves. Which premise is implied or missing, and reconstruct the syllogism. So in this, only one syllogism will be provided or one statement will be provided, and based on that you will have to by yourself figure out that what exactly is the syllogism we are talking about. Now another type of syllogism is polysyllogism. So polysyllogism, it is a syllogism where there is a chain of syllogism or the chain of statements in which the conclusion of one syllogism serves as the premise for the next. Now, conclusion of one syllogism, it means that there are two statements and then there is one statement that has been provided. Now, two statement, one conclusion. Whenever there are two statements that has been provided and accordingly there is another conclusion that has been followed, this conclusion will become the statement for the next syllogism, and accordingly we will follow each other. So this type of syllogism is known as polysyllogism. Multiple syllogism links to each other are termed as polysyllogism. Then you have structure of each syllogism built on previous one to form a logical argument. All humans are mortal. Socrates is human, therefore Socrates is mortal. All mortal needs food. Now this was the earlier conclusion when we were discussing about the topic. Now based on this, after providing the topic, we came to this particular point that all mortal needs food. This is the another statement. Okay, this is another syllogism, and therefore based on this particular fact, all mortal needs food. Now this Socrates is mortal, all mortal needs food, therefore the conclusion would be that Socrates also needs food. This is a form of polysyllogism, and this can be differentiated by looking at that if there is one conclusion that has been provided and through that conclusion another syllogism is following up. This type of syllogism is termed as polysyllogism. I suppose you have understood this point, my dear students. Now we are moving forward and we are discussing another type of syllogism, which is known as seroids. A form of polysyllogism in with several premises leading to a single conclusion, a series of statements where the predicates or one or becomes the subject of the next. Okay, the final conclusion connects the subject to the first premise to the predicate of the last. All dogs are mammals. All mammals are animals. All animals are living. So see, subject, predicate. Now this got converted to subject and new predicate was connected. From this, it became the subject and now a new predicate was created. So this first statement and the last statement will be conjoined together, and what we can infer, the conclusion that will follow from this statement is that all dogs are living beings. This is what is known as seroids, when there are series of statements where the predicate of the one becomes the subject of the next, and that is how seroids has been defined. Looking for chain of reasoning with multiple premises leading to one conclusion. This is how seroids has been defined. So my dear students, I suppose you have understood some of the types of syllogism that we have discussed in this particular lecture series. Why we are discussing these? Because we need to recall whatsoever we have studied so far, so that once you are trying to solve the questions that is related to syllogism, you are pretty much sure that which type of syllogism we are addressing to, and it will enhance your chances of solving the syllogism in a correct manner, in a precise manner, because now you know that, okay, this is polysyllogism, this is categorical syllogism, this is disjunctive syllogism, and this will assure that the correct approach needs to be followed. For example, if we are talking about a categorical syllogism, there are certain rules that has been followed under categorical syllogism, in which we have understood that whenever there is a statement which says that all x are y, it specifically means that some y are x's. So this is a rule that is being talked about in categorical syllogism. So now we know the rule. Until unless we don't know the type, even studying the rule is only going to cause confusion to you. So that is why it becomes very important that we are studying the rules as well as the types of the syllogism. And that is what we are doing in this particular lecture series. I suppose you have understood. We will be continuing the rest of the syllogism and the revision of the syllogism in our next video. And we will be understanding and relating all the types, and we will also be discussing the tips so that you can recall all the things that we have studied so far in this particular lecture series. And you will be very much confident that you will be able to solve all the questions that is related to syllogism in all the competitive examination. With this, I would like to take your excuse, and I would request you to kindly just recall all the things that we have studied, not only through the videos that has been provided, but from the notes also that you have prepared while we were discussing the different types of syllogism in our lecture series. Okay, my dear students, again, thank you for being here and now watching the video till this point. I wish you the very best of luck for your competitive examination. Till then, bye-bye and take care.